Right.
The actual calculation should have been $6.95, but it just was a little in joke about how much more things were in Canada. And then finally, there is there's an outtake section to the film. This is the only Pixar movie to have these outtakes at the end like this. And we get a cameo from Heimlich the caterpillar and Flick the ant from A Bug's Life. And they're from the scene right when Buzz is cutting through the grass and the plants, and we see Heimlich we actually blink and you miss a cameo in the actual movie, but it's fun to see them in the outtakes there at the end of the movie.
Did you ever see the outtake from the song, Patrick?
The outtake, no.
So there's it's an Easter egg on the DVD that I have, and it's like the ending of the When She Loved Me song, and when they drop off the box and she gets back in the car just revs up, takes off, goes out of control, turns around, comes straight at the camera, and runs over the box with Jesse in it.
Oh my God. No,
what?
That's terrible.
Yes. Yeah, it's like this thing that they just create. It's not like finished animation, but it's like this outtake. So like right at the end of that song, the car just revs off and goes out of control and runs over Jesse in the box.
That's horrible.
I can't believe you've never seen that.
No, I actually haven't, which is odd. Someone like me wouldn't have seen that. But yeah, I haven't. I have a few little things to add.
Absolutely.
You mind if I add a few little
Please
facts
do,
about
Patrick.
Pixar itself?
That's why you're here, buddy.
So in 1979, Pixar actually began his graphics group, which was part of Lucasfilm, which is why you have so much reference in this movie to Star Wars.
All those sound effects too.
It's an homage of where
I mean, those are legitimate,
right,
like Darth Vader breathing, the blaster, all those sound effects.
Yep, and, the ending, "I am your father,"
right.
and then all that, and in the beginning, even the when he's going to get the battery. By the way, the battery is a B&L battery, which shows up throughout all of Pixar movies, basically. Mm-hmm. But that's the one world theory.
Patrick loves Disney, for all the listeners here.
Well, here's what's ironic is I love Disney, which is why you asked me to come on here, and this is actually not even technically a Disney movie.
Yes, it is.
It's produced by Disney, but
Patrick,
go ahead.
In 15 years, everything will be a Disney movie. Okay, so
I know, I understand that, but so is Star Wars at this point. But that's besides the point.
Ripley's a Disney princess.
The alien queen is a Disney princess. Yes.
Yes. But anyway, in 1986, Steve Jobs, Apple co-founder Steve Jobs, bought the majority of Pixar, taking it over. And then the merge with Disney didn't happen until 2006, when Steve Jobs became the largest shareholder of Disney stocks.
So it's his reason that they merged?
He was one of the reasons, yeah, because, well, with the whole argument that Zach had brought up about whether to make this movie or not from Disney, Disney had actually had a fire sale and sold off all of its animation and had no animators or anything left because they were going to go all the route of Pixar. And then they had a fight, an argument which started lasted for a while and then blew up worse, where Pixar actually separated itself completely from Disney. And that's when you ended up getting movies like Brave and Princess and the Frog and a couple other movies or whatever. But they had to, scramble to find animators or whatnot. And then Pixar and then Steve Jobs went back to Disney and worked out a relationship where they merged, but he ended up with $7.1 billion in assets, I believe. 7.4 was his payout, but in assets, so he became the largest stockholder of Disney at that point.
That's a lot of assets.
Yes, it is.
So I want to add a piece of trivia as well, and I remember this from the audio commentary for the DVD, because I bought these. There's a gray set of 3 discs for Toy Story 1, 2, and then a bonus disc. And the opening video game sequence, when he flies down to the asteroid, and there's like the rocks that are above the ground, and he's flying underneath them. That was actually an animation error that they decided to keep in. Those rocks were supposed to be on the ground, but something caused them to be floating in the air to render up there, and they're like, hey, that actually looks cool.
Yeah, it looks like outer
space. So
space.
they decided to leave those in.
Yeah, because that whole environment, it was actually originally designed to be like from A Bug's Life, and that should have been just like rocks, as you said. But then there's a lot of Bug's Life out of this whole movie, not just those cameos. There's posters, there's toys in the toy store, and having as you guys know, this is the first time I'd seen Toy Story 2. All right, so Toy Story was the only Toy Story movie I'd seen up until doing this podcast series. And so I'm like, man, there's a lot of Bugs Life stuff in here. Oh, okay, 99, 98 was a Bugs Life. That's why there's so much Bugs Life references thinking about the timeline of the movies. So,
well, also at that point there wasn't much for Pixar to grab from to tie the worlds together yet. Because if you look through, I don't know how much Pixar you've seen, but every movie is tied together in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
You have Pizza Planet, or you have the ball. In the movie Up, the truck is outfitted with the same tires that Lightning McQueen wears. The biggest one is B&L. B&L is the battery company in this, and it gets to be, as Pixar's gone on, it's become a bigger and bigger company until finally you get to WALL-E, where it's literally cleaning up the world. And it's literally the government of the universe. So instead of the Federation, we end up with
B&L.
B&L.
You mentioned Up, Patrick,
So.
and when they're trying to get to the top of the tower, I like how Rex suggests, well, you could just tie a bunch of balloons to ourselves and float to the top. I was like, wow, that's very,
yes.
That's a call forward to Up. So,
yes. But that's a big theory that all of this happens in one universe and all of Disney happens in a separate universe.
well, it's a very depressing theory because it's like the post-apocalyptic, like cars become sentient, and it's like, if you look at, if you're right, that's part of the theory, right? It's like because you have the WALL-E Earth, and
some people they've kind of ignored WALL-E as a
possible
version
future
that may or may not happen. But however, other than that, with the cars being alive, they consider them like toys. Like they act not alive when we're
okay,
around.
that's okay. All right, okay, I'll pick up what you're putting down. All right,
because there are scenes in, if I remember right, there are cars like Luigi is seen in, I believe, The Incredibles or something like that, driving on a road. So, but it's not sentient in that scene. It's just the same car driving by.
Gotcha. Well, cool. We'll do our string theory about the Pixar universe down the road, Patrick. Definitely.
Okay, well, let's jump into our discussion on Toy Story 2. And the first thing that I want to talk about is the thing that I like the least about the movie.
Brandon, why do you come on here and be so negative, Brandon? Why do you have to be so negative? That's my job.
So the one thing that I don't like is, like, right at the beginning, when there are so many, like, major callbacks to the first one, they just kind of feel sandwiched in there, like, forced in there, like with the, when Woody falls down and Buzz does his thing, right, and Bo Peep coming up and, like, hooking him on the neck, like, just these things that we saw in the first movie. There's quite a few of them right at the beginning of the movie, and I'm like, okay. And every time I watch the movie, I'm like, this feels cheap, but then the movie gets a lot better.
Well, I think they wanted to ease you in to the sequel, right? Because it's like you're in familiar territory. You're in Andy's room, even though it's supposed to be a new house. It looks pretty much like the same room. So they save some definite animation money on this.
They move back.
They move back.
They realized that Sid wasn't there anymore, so they moved back.
So yeah, what do you guys think happened? What happened to all Sid's toys? All those freak toys. I mean, I guess he was nice to him after they scared the hell out of him in the first movie. But I felt sorry for leaving all those toys there.
Sid is wearing a nice, tight white jacket right now.
So you can never hurt those toys again. No, I see what you're saying.
You think
Brandon,
Sid grew up to be Hannibal Lecter?
That's part of the extended universe.
Okay, so this is a spoiler for the third one. No, he's a garbage man in the third movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
Do you know that, Patrick?
Yes.
When you're watching it, there's a garbage man at one point, and he's wearing the skull shirt that Sid was wearing.
That's nice.
I was trying not to give that away, but thanks.
Well, it's not like a plot element of the film or anything. It's not like I told you Arium died.
You can't do that again. You've done it once.
I know.
Star Trek Discovery, people. So.
No, this is a Brandon loves to spoil things for Patrick thing.
I accidentally spoiled that Arium died in a text message. I'm like, can you believe Arium? Like, literally, because Patrick usually watched early, and that night he didn't get a chance to watch it, and I, like, just messaged him about it.
I was like, well, now I know.
And now all the listeners know.
Anyways, Patrick, do you have anything on the callbacks to the first film?
Yeah, so going back to that, I didn't mind them because we actually start the very beginning with the video game.
Mm-hmm.
So this was just kind of tying you back to the reality, not the video game that was coming into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I saw it.
I thought that was going to be some kind of dream or something. I was like, what is this? Like Buzz Lightyear dreaming he's actually still an astronaut or something. I thought that was cool. The reveal. I knew it was going to be some kind of reveal, obviously, but the reveal that it was the toys playing a Buzz Lightyear video game, and it's a Super Nintendo. Again, seeing like something like, oh, I know what that is. And that I had a Super Nintendo, like I know what that is, and that kind of sells you on the world around it. And to see like Rex being the one who's obsessed with this video game, it's just fun.
The only thing I had a problem with that and I'm jumping ahead now, but in that scene with him in the video game, right, we see that utility belt on him, which pops up later when he sees all the other Buzzes with the new utility belt, and then it never comes into play for the movie in reality.
Oh, you thought the utility belt would actually be something to save the day, perhaps?
Come on. Isn't that how every story does it? They show you some random thing in the beginning and it pops up at the end.
But it subverted your expectation, just like in The Last Jedi where you saw Luke Skywalker's X-Wing. You thought, oh, he's going to get that X-Wing. He's going to fly and save the day at the end. No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean anything. So there you go. Disney subverting expectation years before The Last Jedi. Disney right here.
Chekhov's utility belt.
Well, it should have been, but it wasn't.
Well, the Toy Story movies, though, the Toy Story movies are good
I
about
never
that.
thought of that once. I don't know.
No, they're good about that because they set something up like in the first movie. You have the match, right? Oh, he's going to use the match. Oh, and the match goes out, and you have to find another way to do it. And then the same thing happens in this movie. Like, oh, this is going to happen. Oh, but they didn't. But I see your point, Patrick. There was no story reason for there to be an advancement in Buzz Lightyear they would need to use to save the day. I follow you.
I think I figured out the only reason why, while we were talking about this, actually, is so you could tell which Buzz was which later on.
No, I really like that.
Yeah, that's the only reason.
You talk about Brandon. You talk about callbacks to the first movie. Like I thought that was a really clever way. Like because the Buzz Lightyear flavor of the first movie was he's this like I'm a spaceman and I talk serious and I don't understand how the real world works. Oh, slotted pig, like stuff like that is hilarious. And they wanted to bring some of that back. But they don't want to do like a RoboCop thing where he had this character evolution and they just erase it for the next movie and he's back to being RoboCop.
Right.
So they bring in, we know, we're going to a toy store. We'll use another Buzz Lightyear. Like I thought, like really though, like this was a really smart sequel because once you get past like this initial, I see what you're saying, Brandon, where you use all these callbacks to the first one. You go to new places. You're like, oh, that'd be cool. What if? How do toy collectors fit into the world of toys? How do toy stores fit into the world of toys? Like they're expanding. Like if you logically expand out this universe they established, I think they go to some real interesting places and they create a lot of opportunities for stories, like multiple versions of the same character, like Buzz.
Yeah, see, this is a very creative sequel. I really, truly love the aspect of the toy collector and how they brought in that Woody is actually this really valuable toy from this phenomenon that happened in, I'm guessing, the 50s or something like that is when it would have been. Late 50s, early 60s is when this phenomenon would have happened. And it's one of those things like people get upset with canon and whatnot. It's like, oh, well, they never said anything about this in the first movie. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter because nobody involved in the story that we got in the first one knew anything about this and it wasn't important, right? It had no bearing on the first one. But I like that. It's world building. We've got these other cowboy toys that come in and it's a really fun aspect of like, with the spoiler at the end of Stinky Pete, being the bad guy, right? You think it's Jessie the whole time because she's mad at him because she doesn't want to go in the box. But it's really brilliant that Stinky Pete is mint in the box because he's never been played with, right? So, I don't know. They're so creative in the writing of these stories and all the beats hit. It's really, really marvelous at how talented these guys are when they come to writing these stories because everything fits like a little puzzle piece. The fact that Stinky Pete is mint in the box is perfect for the reveal of him being the villain at the end.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more, actually, because, like you say, he doesn't understand what it's like to be a toy. He's always been a collectible. And to answer your question, Woody's Roundup ended in 1957 because Stinky Pete says that Sputnik happened, and that's what canceled his show.
Right.
And Sputnik happened in 1957. What's interesting about that is, if you remember the scene where the pig is flipping through the channels looking for the Chicken Man, they actually show a picture of Sputnik on that screen for a split second as he's flying through the channels.
And also, I think it's the Time magazine where Woody's on the cover.
Yes.
At the
it says
bottom.
Sputnik on the bottom.
It says Sputnik on the bottom. And that's before they say Sputnik in the movie. right? So
I believe so.
they
Yeah,
have these little callbacks. Yeah.
But yeah, so and then he explains that